Casey Lund is on the Big Island where a tropical storm warning is in effect.
Opening statements begin in the trial of a woman accused in a brutal 2017 North Shore killing.
Former President Trump's legal troubles are making headlines again today. The new charges he could be facing.
These stories, plus Target makes a change to its employee dress code as parts of the nation battle with an extreme heat wave. Those details coming up on This Is Now. Aloha and good afternoon. Thanks for joining us here on This Is Now. We begin today with a live look outside of Hilo, Hawaii. As you can see, it's sort of the calm before the storm as Tropical Storm Calvin slowly makes its way toward the state. Let's give you a look at the latest track and the information that we have so far. Right now, we do know Tropical Storm Calvin did a little bit of strengthening. Sustained winds are about 50 miles per hour. However, it is still a tropical storm, but it is inching its way toward the island. Let's go down the list of alerts that are currently in place.
There's a tropical storm warning for the Big Island, a flood watch for all islands, a wind advisory through 6 p.m. for Maui County. We're also dealing with a high wind watch starting for 6 p.m. for those areas, and a high surf warning starting at 6 o'clock as well for east shores of the Big Island and Maui County. They're expecting the possibility of waves up to 10 to 15 feet.
And we do have team coverage of Tropical Storm Calvin. Our Casey Lund is standing by in Hilo, Hawaii at the Emergency Operations Center where he just spoke to county officials there. Aloha, Casey.
Aloha, guys. A couple of really important things to note after speaking with Hawaii County Mayor Mitch Roth. The county's really, taking this quite seriously. They've actually decided to make a number of closures. I'm going to let the mayor speak for himself in just a moment. But back to those impacts that you had mentioned. 15-foot surf we could see, and that's why we'll be at Hilo Bay this evening to see as those waves start to come in, the possible storm surge, and again, the rain event, 4 to 8 inches, anywhere between 39 to 57 mile-an-hour winds. So they're taking this seriously. They're hoping that residents do too. I do want to get to what Mayor Roth said about the county closures. He worked very carefully with the governor's office as well as the other mayors to kind of make those decisions. Here's what he had to say just moments ago.
We've started setting up more shelters for people to go. I think we have about 8 shelters at our parks. They'll be opening around 2 o'clock. So actually, they'll start getting prepared around 2 o'clock. We're looking at canceling our bus service. Forward-facing county operations will also be closed tomorrow. Our parks will be closed. Our beach parks will be closed. The transfer stations for trash will probably be closed. Basically, we're expecting to have water, possibly flooding, and wind, possibly branches, power lines coming down. So really, we're asking people to stay off the roads and be smart.
Can you talk a little bit about So again, there are some of those closures that were already in place this morning. Waipio Valley Access Road, that is only accessible for residents, farmers. Again, camping permits canceled through tomorrow. We knew that this morning, but those really important closures include the bus, the Heleon bus. And there's a lot of routes there that are either affected, starting late, or canceled altogether. So you can go to the Twitter account for Heleon Bus. They have all those updates, all those schedule changes there. And then I do just really quickly want to run through some of the shelters. They have 8 shelters now. Pahoa High School, Hilo High School, Kea'au Armory, Robert Herkes Gymnasium in Pahala, Naalehu Community Center, Honaka'a High School, Hisako Gym in Kohala, and Waimea Elementary School. Those will be opening at 2 this afternoon. And again, guys, that's when we could start to see some of these impacts. It's obviously a beautiful sunny day right now, but as we've been hearing from our First Alert Weather team, they've been on this for the better part of a week. We know that could change, and it likely will here in just a couple of hours. For now, we'll send things back into the Digital Center. Ash, Dylan.
Thank you so much, Casey. We'll check in back with you later today. And we want to get to some of our other big stories today. Former President Donald Trump says he's been notified that he is the target of an investigation into the January 6th Capitol attack and efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Alice Barr has the latest on Mr. Trump's legal troubles.
And I won't forget Former President Trump's legal troubles back in the spotlight today after he revealed he'd been notified he is the target of a grand jury investigation into January 6th and efforts to reverse the results of the 2020 election. The former president calling it a witch hunt. Two sources confirming to NBC News the target letter came from special counsel Jack Smith.
He has made it abundantly clear that Donald Trump will be charged in connection with January 6th.
Legal analysts say charges could include inciting an insurrection and conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government, though that would require proving the former president knew he had lost the election and tried to overturn it anyway. Mr. Trump writing today, quote, "Under the United States Constitution, I have the right to protest an election that I am fully convinced was rigged and stolen." Republican lawmakers echoing former President Trump's claims of a political prosecution.
President Trump went up in the polls and was actually surpassing President Biden for re-election. So what do they do now? Weaponize government to go after their number one opponent.
While on the campaign trail, criticism of the GOP frontrunner is growing.
We can't keep dealing with this drama. We can't keep dealing with the negativity.
It was shown how he was in the White House and didn't do anything while things were going on. He should have come out more forcefully.
Though Governor DeSantis stopped short of saying the former president's actions were criminal. Adding to the legal challenges today in Florida, a federal judge holding the first pretrial hearing in the case involving former President Trump's handling of classified documents. A separate indictment could be coming in the next few weeks out of Georgia, surrounding efforts to overturn the 2020 election in that state. Just yesterday, the Georgia Supreme Court rejected the Trump legal team's last-ditch effort to head that off. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
For an in-depth explanation on all of this, let's welcome now John Decker, HNN's Washington correspondent. Always good to see you, John. First question to you, what could be the next steps in the DOJ's investigation?
Well, now that the former president has received a target letter, it will be up to the Department of Justice, the special counsel, to bring his evidence to the grand jury and ask the grand jury to indict the former president. You need 12 out of 16 grand jurors to agree to that, and typically that's exactly what happens. And so we could see an indictment being brought against the former president concerning his actions in the days and weeks leading up to January 6th, perhaps on January 6th itself in the next few days, or perhaps in the next few weeks. But I think an indictment is forthcoming, and that is what the former president's lawyers are also preparing for.
Now, if the grand jury does decide to indict former President Trump, what could be the possible charges?
Well, we know they've been investigating everything associated with January the 6th. So we're talking about charges related to the possibility of conspiracy to defraud the United States. That has to do with that fake elector scheme and efforts to undo the results, reverse the results of the November 2020 election. Also, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. That has to do with what was happening on January 6th, the counting of electoral college ballots. Those likely will be the primary focus of any charges that are brought against the former president.
Now, John, you are a lawyer. Provide some of your insight, your thoughts. How difficult of a case do you think this is for prosecutors to either prove what they're trying to prove or in President Trump to defend himself? How difficult are these charges in court to deal with?
I think it really depends upon the witnesses that Jack Smith has associated with proving his case. Witnesses are very helpful in determining a defendant's state of mind, what the former president was thinking. We know, for instance, that Mark Milley, who's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has testified that the former president knew in the aftermath of the 2020 election he did not win. That is very important. And he is a very credible witness, being the chair of the Joint Chiefs. So witnesses like Mark Milley, witnesses like others in his inner circle, his former White House chief of staff, Mark Meadows, his former son-in-law, Jared Kushner, they will prove to be very important, very integral in terms of proving this case against the former president.
Witnesses are key indeed. A few more questions for you, John. we know that despite former President Trump being impeached, he's still eligible to run for president. What are some of the other political implications of the former president faces if he is indicted in this matter?
Well, it's been counterintuitive because we've seen when the former president is indicted, we saw this in Manhattan, we saw this in that case in South Florida involving classified documents, his poll numbers with Republicans have typically gone up. His fundraising numbers go up as well. So that's pretty good in terms of helping him secure the Republican nomination. But I think the big picture, it's not good for the former president because he's not just trying to win the presidency with solely Republicans. He needs to reach out. He needs to reach out to independent voters who did not vote for him in 2020. And it's hard to see how this is helpful to him in making the case that they should vote for him in 2024, even though they did not support him in 2020.
And lastly, John, help us paint the picture for us. What is the timeline of this? When could this criminal case possibly get underway?
Well, we still don't know when the case is going to get underway with that criminal case that has been brought against the former president in South Florida involving classified documents. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that an indictment does come forward against the former president concerning his January 6th activities within the next 2 weeks. Then it will be up to the judge presiding over the case. The judge will be a judge right here in the District of Columbia to decide the timetable, the calendar for this case actually starting. And I would think that a trial judge here in Washington, D.C. would like to get this case underway sometime in 2024 before the November presidential election. Donald Trump's lawyers would like to delay it past 2024, but I don't think that's going to happen, especially if this case is brought rather quickly.
With all the insight and knowledge on this, HNN's Washington correspondent John Decker. John, thanks so much for joining us here on This Is Now.
A U.S. national has been detained in North Korea after crossing the border. A U.S. official says the Army soldier crossed over voluntarily and was set to be sent home after facing disciplinary action by the military. He was assigned to the U.S. Forces Korea but was not in uniform when he went into North Korea. According to the United Nations Command, he crossed the military demarcation line separating North and South Korea during a joint security area tour. Another official said there's no indication the soldier was trying to defect. The UN is working to resolve the incident. The tour the soldier was on is organized by the United Nations Command and is open to the general public. Opening statements are underway in the murder and kidnapping trial of Haley Dan Duran for the 2017 killing of Thelma Boinville on the North Shore. Dan Duran is being tried separately from her then-boyfriend, Stephen Brown, who was convicted in January of murder, kidnapping, and burglary. He's set to be sentenced next month, and during his trial, Brown testified that it was Dan Duran alone who killed Boinville. Dan Duran's attorney is trying to convince the jury that she wasn't involved in the murder.
This is what the evidence will show. The evidence will further show that there is no legal justification for her conduct, and that the concepts of both principal and accomplice liability apply in this case.
The person you're being asked to find, the murderer, that's him right there. He's already been found. That's what the evidence in this case will show. I'll tell you what the evidence will not show. The evidence will not show that there's any person who witnessed Haley do any harm to Miss Thelma Boinville.
Dan Duran pleaded not guilty to all charges back in 2017. We'll have more from court today on later editions of What You News Now.
Maui police have arrested another person in connection with a murder in Kula. Arrest logs showed this morning that 40-year-old Carl Rackley was booked on suspicion of second-degree murder. His bail was set at $200,000. This arrest comes after hunters found 36-year-old Jonathan Awai's body wrapped in plastic in the woods in Kula on July 5th. He was shot to death. Also arrested was 58-year-old John Joseph Smith and his wife. However, prosecutors declined charges for her and she was released. The victim's mother tells us her son was living with the suspects, but she doesn't know what led up to the murder.
He did not deserve this. To have something like this happen is so awful. To wrap him in plastic like he was some kind of an animal, you know? It's just terrible. But let me tell you right now, that boy was something. He was something. He was a good boy. He loved his family. He loved his daughter.
Smith pleaded not guilty in his first appearance in court yesterday. His bail was kept at $500,000. He's due back in court tomorrow.
Honolulu fire investigators have determined a Pearl City house fire over the weekend was caused by a child playing with matches. It happened Sunday afternoon at a residence on Ho'ola Place. Bystanders were able to get the fire under control with extinguishers before HFD crews arrived, but not before it caused about $12,000 in damages. No injuries were reported.
We have new details on what may have led to 4 Honolulu police recruits suffering from heat exhaustion during training yesterday. The recruits were taken away by ambulance from the HPD Academy in Waipahu. HPD tells us they were in the dojo, which is not air-conditioned. Former Deputy Chief John McCarthy says he was told they were doing a so-called bull ring exercise. That helps determine if a recruit needs more training. EMS says all of the recruits were in serious condition.
A plea deal is in the works for the Department of Public Safety's top trainer, Marty Martinez. Yesterday was supposed to be the start of her trial for allegedly lying under oath and on her resume. Our chief investigative reporter, Lynn Kawano, has the story.
If the plea deal drops all the felony charges, Martinez could possibly keep her job at the Public Safety Department. Marty Martinez, the woman in charge of training for all the sheriff's deputies and corrections officers in the state, is looking for a deal from prosecutors. That's according to court records. Her attorney asked that trial be continued, and the state agreed, telling the court they're in plea negotiations and are close to resolving the case. Martinez is charged with a dozen misdemeanor counts and 2 felony counts of perjury. Prosecutors say she lied about her education and experience to beef up her resume and get promoted.
Good morning. Calling this hearing to order.
She is also accused of lying under oath at this hearing before the State Labor Relations Board in December 2019 when asked about her qualifications.
So what you're saying is there is no record of your degree in 1992 in criminal justice and criminology, correct?
That is correct.
The Labor Board has since determined that PSD, a law enforcement agency, covered up her alleged crimes.
Nothing attacks and corrupts the judicial system more than perjury. And perjury, for some reason, doesn't seem to be taken seriously, and it is quite a serious offense.
Attorney Ted Hong was in the Labor Board hearing in question and says he's shocked that Martinez is still getting paid by taxpayers while on leave.
The department could have been doing its own independent investigation, either simultaneously or as soon as the charges of perjury were discovered. It's a no-brainer.
A spokesperson for public safety admitted in a statement that there are no parallel administrative investigations taking place. However, once the criminal case has been completed, the statement says PSD may pursue internal investigations should such action be warranted.
It's very problematic that this person is still on payroll, still being paid by our taxpayers' money. In my opinion, the administration can and should do its own investigation despite the pending criminal charge and terminate her for cause.
If a deal is not reached, trial is scheduled for October. I'm Lynn Kawano, Hawaii News Now.
Governor Green has declared a housing emergency here in Hawaii. The proclamation is designed to fast-track more housing here on Oahu and across the state with the creation of a lead housing officer and a working group to streamline the building process and push through more of the bottlenecks. The state says it has the highest level of regulatory restrictions to development in the U.S., and that's causing a health and safety crisis.
You'll see that we're being aggressive. We're waiving impact fees because they are causing extra cost right now, and we need the housing too badly.
It's a historic moment, and I believe in those kinds of moments. You come to a point in time when you say, this is enough.
I'm just very disappointed and really alarmed. This isn't about affordable housing. This isn't about housing our people. If you look at it, there are no baseline affordability requirements. There are no income limits.
The Sierra Club says it's worried about environmental and cultural protection laws and the ultimate authority of the lead housing officer. The governor says he expects the proclamation to last a year, but it could possibly be extended.
Meanwhile, a groundbreaking ceremony was held today for the next phase of an affordable housing project near Pearl Harbor. Phase 2 of the Halava View apartments will be constructed on Kalaloa Street right across from the USS Arizona Memorial. The $168 million project will add over 300 rental units for low-income families. 5 of the units will also be designated to house chronically homeless individuals. And now let's take a live look outside at Hilo Bay. This is Coconut Island. As Casey mentioned at the top of the show, blue skies and sunshine there on the Big Island, but that could change as Tropical Storm Calvin approaches the island chain, and we will see possible impacts probably around 2 p.m. according to forecasters. But of course, things can change, so stick with Hawaii News Now in the meantime for any weather updates. Now let's get a check on the forecast from Guy Hagi.
So for today, though, should still be a pretty nice day. Basically, the calm before the storm, very little rain, just a few minor splashes with lots of sunshine, and those winds will begin picking up. And because of those winds, we've got a rising east and southeast swell from Calvin, 5 to 7 feet on the east shores today, getting even bigger by tomorrow. In fact, a high surf warning will likely be posted for Hawaii Island's windward sides. So again, breezy today, but we're really waiting for those inclement conditions to start up later today for Hawaii Island, and then through tomorrow we'll get those winds 30 to 35 miles an hour with some gusts upwards of 70 miles an hour. Could be a severe weather situation, so it's the first alert weather day for Hawaii Island. And then rather quickly by Thursday morning things should ease up, although those breezy winds will linger into next week.
All right, let's see what the internet is talking about. So the mainland is dealing with some excessive heat. In Phoenix, Arizona, they set a new record today, 19 consecutive days and counting with above 110 degrees.
Oh, that is quite hot indeed. And because of that, there is a change in dress code for employees of Target. Now, as much of the country deals with this record-breaking heat, Target has changed it to allow most of its employees to wear shorts to work. That's nearly 440,000 people who can now don the bare legs while earning their paychecks. Target used to only allow employees who worked outside to wear shorts. The new dress code doesn't specify if shorts have to be khaki. They can actually be any solid color. And I feel like in Hawaii it's kind of common, but I got a secret for you guys. I'm wearing shorts under this. Every single day I wear shorts here. It's just comfortable. And we sit behind a desk.
Right.
Nobody sees that. So Target changes its dress code for employees. So hopefully they're a little bit more comfortable now.
Yes. You know where else it's hot right now? Japan.
Yes, it is.
So there is a festival going on right now. It is called the Gion Matsuri Festival. And there was a float procession in the ancient Japanese capital of Kyoto. So participants pulled a total of 23 decorated floats through the streets with musicians playing the drums and the flutes. And as the floats, they weigh 10 tons each.
Ooh.
They can only move straight, of course. And bamboo sticks were placed on the ground at an intersection to turn them 90 degrees and change directions.
Ah, technology. Good old-fashioned bamboo. I love Japan. I miss it so much. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Remember, tune in later for Tropical Storm Calvin updates.